Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Wingenfeld, and I'm the Marketing and Programming Manager for the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival. Today, I'm joined by two subjects of the film, Behind the Strings, cellist Nick Tavares and Wei-Gon Lee, the first violin and co-founder of the Shanghai Quartet, and the producer of the film, Michael Peroff. Thank you all for joining me today. Have a quick chat about the film. Really appreciate it. Wei-Gon and Nick, when they first started filming this documentary, I mean, what was it like for you? I mean, I know for some people, I'm sure they looked at it almost like a distraction, or were you embracing of it? And what were your expectations of the film when it first started filming?
For so many years, we've been performing in public. So being watched by cameras and people around us while we were working, it was not very strange for us. But to actually follow you, in your rehearsal and with a camera, it's took a little bit effort for me to just try to disregard them being there and just go on with our own business, because we have work to be completed. And I think it's interesting, not only for classical music audience, but for people outside a musical field to watch the film, because it's like watching a rock band, how they work. It must be interesting for a lot of people. Also, it's like watching a company, how they work inside. We are also a business. So how do we deal with non-musical things, and how do we deal with little conflict, and how to make concessions to make our product really good. And we've been doing this for 38 years, so it is a lot of materials. Nick, you want to add on that?
No, I think what you said is very accurate. I had a little bit of a different experience, because there was years ago a documentary made about my mother and her work as a violin teacher in East Harlem, where I grew up. But for the most part, so I was more acclimated, kind of the camera in your face kind of thing. What I did worry about a little bit was the curtain being lifted, so that you could see the machinations of the quartet behind the scenes, and how we make decisions, and how challenging it can be. Most people know us from the stage, and even if they know us off the stage, it's more at a reception following concert, where we're, I would say, on our best behavior. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, that is very real. And I think that's the idea of the documentary. And I think Michael and Hal, the director, were able to capture a lot of that and make it very personal and very, as you said, relatable. People could empathize with our situation and how we kind of go through this process, because it's an unusual business, a string quartet. It's not like anything else that one would understand. It's not just, it is a business, but it's more than a business. It's a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle with all of our families involved. So I think the film was great. And I think that we were sort of, after a while, it becomes a non-issue. I mean, Michael and Hal filmed, I want to say, almost 5 years of material. There was some pauses in between. So they captured a lot of time with us. And in fact, after a while, it was like they were a part of the team, and they were with us, and without us, kind of, you would never even know they were there. So a lot of things that went down, we forgot that they were even there. And perhaps looking back, maybe we thought, well, maybe shouldn't have said that, or shouldn't have done that. But in the end, it was well worth it, because the film is that much more real. So
the balance of being a musician and your family, and like the struggle of that, which as a viewer, I mean, I never once really thought much about it. I mean, you see a performance like that's amazing, but behind that, like behind the curtain, the real life. I mean, Michael, was that something when you were filming that you set out to really capture who they were and what their life was outside, and how they balanced that?
Yeah, that was a very important part of our plan. And we thought it added a lot of important stuff. It's just not a performance film. You see a lot of great performance, but we definitely wanted to get the backstories and how they work together and how they travel. And we filmed them on planes, buses, trains, taxis, and how they are when they're off stage, which adds a lot to, even if you're not familiar with these guys, to see professional performers how they live their life. And that was the goal. It took a while to get all of that on our checklist. And so, we think it's a very compelling part of the film overall, is to be able to see that in real time.
Nicholas, in the documentary, you said something along the lines of deciding to play the cello because it was something your mom didn't know how to play. I don't know if it was something along those lines.
Yeah, I'll just take one little step back and say that the four of us in the group at the time, and even all of our parents are musicians. But I think the difference is that my colleagues were more, it was almost more, they were preordained. It was already a fact that they would be musicians, and specifically violinists, I think, because both of their parents were violinists. And then also, my other colleague's father was violinist. So it was very, it was almost like that was the path they were chosen to take. And I sort of was not so, I wasn't sure if that was the path I was going to take all the way until I got to college. And even in college, I made some other decisions. But I don't know, Wei Gang and Hong Gang would tell you that, their parents were their teachers for many, many, many years, or at least in the beginning. And we also, my family subscribed to that as well. It's very quick. I was very quick to move away from that to try to do something my mom couldn't do, because I really didn't want to hear her telling me what to do. Still to this day, I struggle with that, to be very frank. But so I played, I had played the violin at a very young age, and then I moved. I wanted to not play the violin anymore, and the cello was a nice middle ground. And the first month she tried to play it, but it's a very different animal from the violin. I mean, even as a professional, people think, oh, you play the violin, so that means you must be able to play. I mean, you play the cello, you must be able to play the violin or the viola, and it's not like that. We specialize in our instrument and our instrument alone. Hong Gang did go from the violin to the viola, which is somewhat, a lateral move. It's possible. Even still, it takes a lot of skill and hard work. For me, I just needed to get away from my mom and her teaching. And so I found the cello and I started playing it, and she would listen to me and she would criticize, but she couldn't get into the nitty gritty. And that was a very, very good thing for me. I think it's more personal, but that's just how it is. I think my colleagues, I'm not sure, they practiced and maybe there was a sense of fear. I'm not sure, Wei Gang, what you would say, learning from your dad.
Fear. And more encouragement from my mom. But a good combination.
But you didn't mind studying with your father, right? Or maybe you didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice, but thinking back, I'm actually very, very thankful that they choose it. But it could, in other cases, it could work out the other way. You could resent it for the rest of your life.
Wei Gang, I mean, looking back over the past over 30 years, I mean, when you think back to in the beginning, what were your goals? I guess, have you met those goals?
I think I didn't really have a goal. When we started, I admired a few top quartets in the world, and they were all living in like the Juilliard, Guarneri, the Vermeer Quartet. They were all from the United States. And we studied with them, and later we became friends, and they were always our mentor, but we played with them. And, after 25 years, many of them retired and disbanded, and we're still there. Now we're considered one of the top quartets. So I guess, in a way, we have come and reached our goal, but, that's what I'm not thinking every day. It's just, we're thinking the next year or next 5 years, what projects we're doing. We've recorded 35 albums. We plan to record a whole lot more and commission a lot more works. So just maybe just play really great concerts for the classical music lovers.
So, I mean, knowing how difficult and how much work goes into being a part of the quartet, if you had to give like advice to maybe an aspiring musician or maybe a high school student that's like in love with your music or trying to create like that, what kind of advice could you give? Or is it more of like a warning? Because I know if you don't really have that absolute strong dream and passion and commitment, it might not work. And I saw from the film like how much you guys put into it, and it's absolutely incredible. Like, what kind of advice would you give to a young musician?
I think two criteria you must have in order to become a successful musician. One is you have to love it. You know, if you only think that's a job like most suitable for you, probably you will not really be sustaining, because if you don't love it, it's a lot of hard work almost every day. And the second thing is you have to be reasonably talented, plus the hard work. Just to be talented is not enough. And just to work, if you don't have the talent, also makes life very difficult. So usually if my students don't have such both of those quality, I want to almost persuade them not to do music as a profession.
Nicholas, do you have any?
He may not agree.
I think that the term being a musician is a very it's not so easy to define. I think music has a lot of areas that anyone, whether they have talent or they don't have talent, can participate in. And I think that we just have to separate. We happen to teach, you know, Weigang and I happen to teach at a very high level, and students who are on the precipice of having a career in their specific instrument and in their specific, you know, their field, which is like, let's say in Weigang's example, either violin performance or maybe, you know, a string quartet or a chamber musician. But music is a varied field, and there's a lot of room for other areas that a student can explore. It's not so a lot of times when I think Weigang, I will paraphrase him, when he says that he encouraged them not to do music, he may just imply that maybe it's not best for them to try to make a living as a violinist. But that doesn't
exactly
mean that there's not room for, right, there may be room for them to, and there is always room for them to be, you know, a fine music teacher or a manager, you know what I mean, be in music management or participate in other aspects of music that will still bring them a lot of joy and keep them in the field. I think that we just have to be very careful. It is hard. I would tell you firsthand that I'm not interested in having my children who play instruments, I mean, unless they're very passionate. And Weigang is actually very accurate when he says you have to have the passion, because it's something that most of us will not be super successful, no matter how much we love it, but you have to start with this passion to follow your dream in music. And from there, if you don't happen to have the, you know, you're the 5% or in the US 1% that actually can make a living playing their instrument, there's a lot of other areas that we you know, that you can participate in. Music education is crucial in the development of a child. Uh-oh, am I connected? It says the internet is weak. Okay, I'm back.
You're back. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe I'll edit it out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think that we want people we need more people in music. We need more music enthusiasts. We need more people who are going to concerts and appreciate the value of music in education and in their lives as a human being. The arts are essential, and we're slowly seeing that disappear. So I think when we say, oh, we encourage them to not be a musician in that respect, I think it's specific to maybe the instrument they're studying. But remember, music is a fantastic and wonderful area of study, and it doesn't just mean they have to perform and be on the stage. There's a lot of room for other areas of exploration in music. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a bunch of friends a couple of days ago. In Asia, we have a tendency of having very young audience in our symphonic concerts, you know, chamber concerts. And in Korea, for young people in their 20s and 30s to go out to have fun, and the first choice is to go to a concert for a lot of them, which is kind of unthinkable in America right now. I hope we can help turning that around a little bit have a broader musical education. I think we had more of that in the 60s and 70s in a lot of the cities.
That's the area that I think we need to continue to grow, which is to the music appreciation and have it a part of everyone's education, so that yes, people would go to concerts, you know, or at least know. I'll give you one example. When I go through security here in China, I don't know the level of education these guys, you know, the Chinese equivalent of the TSA, okay? But every single one knows, they know the specific word for a cello, and they know that the instrument that I have is a cello. When I walk through the TSA in the US, in America, and I'm not using the TSA as an example, but pretty much anyone, most people, oh, is that a guitar? Oh, you play, you know, what is that? Is that and they rattle off whatever instrument that comes to mind. And there's no relationship to actually what I'm doing. And in China, where, and in a lot of these Asian countries where there's a different appreciation, and I don't want to say respect, but it's part of their education. These people who are, you know, not terribly well educated, they know what a cello is. And in fact, they may even know of a piece that they, oh, you know, Tchaikovsky or some piece that I'm shocked that they would even know. It's a different kind of appreciation and understanding of classical music, maybe because it's more embedded in their culture. I wish we had more of that. That would be and I think you can see, you know, in Michael's movie, you'll see it a little bit more. And I think what Wei Gang's talking about is this younger audience. It's you know, China, for example, is the future of classical music in many ways, because this is where people are actually coming to concerts. And it's not just really people who are on their deathbeds, you know what I mean, and hearing their last concert before they, you know, go to, you know, if they make it to the bathroom, they may not even make it. So, you know what I mean, it's a different environment. And I you know, that's why we're sort of here at this point in our careers. So.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, one of the reasons I love documentary filmmaking. And because this is an example of, I mean, I watch a lot of documentaries just because of my work, where a lot of people submitting films. And when it comes along like this, that's well-made, interesting story, and like opens my eyes to something I never thought much about. Like, yeah, I can listen to music all day if I want to, but behind that curtain, like learning about the people, it's very eye-opening. And I wonder, Michael, if that was one of your goals with making the film, and what do you hope audiences take away?
Yeah, that was definitely a goal. And we've, again, going back to the point, but we wanted to attract people that were not only bound from experience and appreciation of classical chamber music. And we felt by broadening the story and seeing how it's made, their music, that becomes inherently interesting. You know, this formula could be used in other genres of music. You know, follow Willie Nelson around and see how he works it out with his compatriots. I mean, he's a solo player, but he's got a group. But we really wanted to embrace and show that 360 degree, which is really very interesting. It's absolutely fascinating. And we knew it would be, but we didn't know how and why it would be. But just by being there, a fly on the wall for 5 years, in studios, in rehearsals, in their homes, traveling, you know, you see more than just the perform. And when you watch performances, whether on TV or online, you see somebody come out on the stage, they do their performance, assuming music, they get an applause, they take a bow, and they're out. You know, that's a very single dimension view of a successful musician. And we really thought there was a big story that would give people appreciation of more than just that one view. So that was our goal from the get-go. We just didn't know how it would fall into place, but it did. We're very happy that it did. So.
Yeah, very well made film. Michael, congrats on the film you made. Michael, Wei Gang, Nick, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I really do think audiences will enjoy your film, and I look forward to, you know, telling everybody to go see it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can watch Behind the Strings by visiting chagrinfilmfest.org and purchasing a virtual ticket.